Byron will be sharing his screen. He will be presenting on doing photograph backdrops for your layout and what they did with the Boeing layout. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Byron.
Well, thank you. I'm Byron Osborn. I'm the president of the Boeing Employees Model Railroad Club. I've been involved with the photo backdrops we use on our layout. And this is covering how our club created our photo backdrops and how we've installed them. I have been, like I say, greatly involved because I did all the taking the photos to Costco to get them printed, and two other people in the club created the photos along with myself. So our railroad is the Seattle and North Cascades, heavy on the Cascades as far as the photos are concerned. The backdrop for the photos for the backdrop were selected to match the areas that we're modeling. Our railroad starts in Seattle as a hidden staging yard and goes through Edmonds, Everett, up through the mountains, Concrete, Diablo, Mazama, Winthrop, and ends up in Omak. So we're covering the mountains as much as we can. Photos were collected on railfan trips and mostly in those areas we talked about. Though some of ours are in the low lines areas. And this gives us the photos we captured to start on our photo backdrops. So this is a picture of inside the layout. This shows the classification yard in Seattle, which has photo backdrops. And the upper area, which for those at the beginning, Burr Stewart mentioned there's a cattle pen located up there, and it's so realistic. He said you can smell the manure in the cattle pen, so it must be effective. So a few shots of the layout just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. And you can see the photos across the back here. This is another section. This is the city or the town of Concrete. Just as a point of reference, these photos that are highlighted across here, those are photos that Bob Kelly did looking down from Highway 2, just west of the summit of Stevens Pass, down looking at the old GN area of Wellington. So it was 5 photos stitched together. And then later we were able to produce them into 3 6-foot panels. This is a view looking in the other direction. You'll notice the far end here, we don't have photos up yet. So what we did, we erected the backdrops with masonite or hardboard, and then we picked a sky color and painted it all a light blue. But if you'll notice when we get into it, none of the light blue was remaining. We covered it all with photos. This is that same area just showed it didn't have the photos. In here, we install the photos. This is the town of Winthrop. So when we first started, you see the blue painted walls of the masonite. We, even after we got we're putting the track in, this is 2 levels. There is a 3rd level right here, which is our logging operation. It'll be developed later. Even when we started doing track, we were already putting up test photos. This is a photo I think Bill Kajik did at Skykomish looking north. And another section as we're building, putting the photos in. So how we create the photos? Again, club members took the photos in the local areas in the Cascades, down in the valley and between Auburn and Kent. Found also photos on the website. We used non-copyrighted photos. We didn't want to get any infringement rights. They were downloaded into Photoshop. We used mainly Photoshop elements. And then these photos needed to be stitched together that we shot and mentioned earlier, where we did 3, 5, 6, 7 different photos and had them stitched. Edited the photos to match our scenes. We added and removed different items. So we ended up with multiple layers in Photoshop, up to 30 layers on some of the photos that we put together. And in some cases, we moved images. There's a red barn that'll show up in 2 or 3 different photos that we've moved around, but we changed the looks a little bit as we went through. So again, creating the photos, we had photos of the local area, websites, Photoshop elements. We used two sizes in our photos. Most were 24 by 72 inches, 2 feet by 6 feet. And we used a couple that were 2 by 3s. That's the cost that we had at Costco. $30 for the 2 by 6, 15 for the 2 by 3s. Shoot the photos you're going to use with the highest resolution possible, at least a 5 megapixel, but higher is better if you can get it. Say we had our photos printed at Costco. We created the final photo ready to go print. And by the way, these photos, after we put them all together and had 30 layers, we flattened them. If you take them unflattened, they're so large it makes it a little more cumbersome to get them printed. We took them down on flash drives or CDs, memory cards, whatever we had, that we loaded them on. You do just like any photo we did at Costco. You just download them into their system. We use poster size prints, so we're called posters, not photographs, as far as Costco was concerned. From Costco, we did not let them do any color corrections. The colors that we had put in and adjusted for our own, we did not want them changing them. We also told the clerks not to do any changes, print them full size, no cropping, no change, enlarging the image. Now, here's the bad part, guys. Sorry, Costco is out of business as far as printing photos in their stores. I listed here a couple of alternate solutions that would help you. MPix, they will do those size prints. The 2436 will match one we've got. This is a little bigger. There are those sizes, and it's all mail order. The paper they use is not glossy. It's more of a sheen or matte, and it is much thinner than regular photo paper. And that's where it was at Costco also. A second source was Poster Burner, and there's an idea of their prices. And if they're a matte finish, if you'll notice, it's pretty well double what it was at Costco. So what do we do to create the photo? We would edit to produce two photo panels together. So we're doing two 24 by 72 images. So we put them together in a separate canvas in Photoshop to do a 24 by 144. Or on one case, we did one larger. I did one that was 24 by 182 inches because the area I had to cover was much larger than the 144. After you get the images aligned, you want to then split them up into two separate 24 by 76 of 24 by 72 inches by cropping the image and creating two new images from it. The reason for this is so you ensure that the two images will still line up when you print them and have them ready to mount to your backdrop. Here's an example of one of the photos put together. This is the one that's 24 inches high. You can see the markings on the side over here. And this is a screenshot from Photoshop, and it's 182 inches long. I'll get more into the details of how that was put together later. Okay, here's an example of one of the photo backdrops where we blending the rock casting to combine to make it a complete scene. I'm sure all of you can pick it out, but in case you can't, these trees right here are foreground trees. The rock casting goes right up through here, and it's in this area. So everything up here, photo, and then the sky and the clouds that we added in. I'll talk more about the sky when we get to a fuller image. This is a picture I made over on the, XGN, now BNSF, 3 miles west of Merritt. Same general area, a little different location. You can see rock castings down here where it's blending in against the other rock castings and a part of a photo on this side. Another example, here's the photo. Another section of rock castings all through here, and you see how the colors are blended here to match up with the photo. The photo needs to go in sooner than the foreground scenery so you can blend the colors. Okay, when we got started and this to put the photo in, we took the image that were prepared. In this case, it's next to a log pond in our sawmill. We want to match the photo on how the water gets to the log pond. And here's the log pond. This is the photo. This is a lake back here, but it's It looks like a lake. It's just a big river, but it funnels down into a smaller river off to the side. So we just on our home printers, we put it on 8.5 by 11 white paper, and then pieced it together to get an idea how everything will fit together and decide how much we need to move it around. This is the photo after it's been printed and installed. You can see here where the funnels, where the water's coming in from the lake, at least in our world anyway, and the lake and the rivers back here. A little better shot. This is the photo coming down because this water is tricking out of the backed up of the lake or the river, comes underneath this bridge and flows down into a creek that goes under another part of our layout. Further to the right of that, we wanted this is the river coming through here, and it comes over and comes down this waterfall and drops down into another water scene. So we wanted to see what these rock formations need to look like. We actually got these pictures of rocks here came off a Woodland Scenics advertisement off one of the back of MR. This is the waterfall you saw on the other side. The waterfall coming down, works its way around and then out into Puget Sound. This is rock. Some rock castings, and up in the top, the rock castings are blended into the photo backdrop. This is all photos here. Okay, here we have matched the field in the photo with the field in the bench work. This field in the photo is the farm area located down where Smith Farms, the dairy used to be. This is across I-167, and some of the low valley scenes we were able to use for our low area. Because this is
that's Carbonitos.
Yeah, Carbonitos. Thank you, Bill. The road going across the valley and going up towards getting the Orange Road back up off to the side here. In this one, these trees are in the photo. This field is part of the scenery. Okay, another photo. This is our mainline trackage through here. This is all foreground scenery. This is all photographs in the background. I'm sure you can all pick them out, but I'll point out some of the break lines just in case. Sort of see this red pickup in the distance. When the first photo, we did this photo, the truck's too modern. We're modeling 1950s, late 50s, 59 time frame. Just too modern a truck. So in this scene, we got rid of that truck. We wanted the red truck in, so we placed the silver truck with the older red truck. So you're able to do that in Photoshop if you're not familiar with it. And I'll show you a little bit of how we did it. Another one of our scenes, this is the Great White North hockey puck and toke factory. Uncle Billy, Mr. Bill Kajik, that's his building he's built. And again, right through here is our brake line, and this is in the photo. These are our main lines here. So part of that scene just behind his building we want to look at is the vehicles in the background on the photos. We pick those out of other photos, place them in this one as one of the layers. Photo runs right through here. Here's where we got this milk truck from. So the process is you got to isolate that milk truck. So in Photoshop, we put a lasso around it, copied it, and now we can move it wherever we want to use it. And that's what we did, put it in that last photo. We did a similar thing with McDonald's. If you notice, that's the 50s era McDonald's display. A little closer view of it. These are buildings that are in it. One thing on these photos, and I've had some other people say they don't like photos for backdrops because it takes away from the other part of the scene. We purposely made our photos not real sharp, so they sort of more blend into the background rather than be a major part of the background. Those photographs that I did, though, I made it so that the photo backdrop was in focus rather than the foreground stuff. So here's the McDonald's, and here's what we did to get it. Cut it out of that picture, copied it, pasted into the other. And you can see some of the layers we're working with up here. This building is one we just showed, and this just shows the rest of that same scene. and our players here are in the foreground. Here's a screenshot of the Photoshop showing the process of adding photos and of buildings into the photograph. And what I've done is you can see how many layers we have here. Each of those is a different image in the photograph. But I was going to put flats in front of these. So where you see these buildings here, those are just whole placeholders. So I can get an idea of where the photos need to be so they'd be seen through the 3D the building flats in the foreground. And when we get ready to print, then we go remove those buildings. That long photograph we worked with is 182 inches long, goes between the two pilasters, this one here, all the way over to here. So in order to do it, I had to make 3 different photos out of it, 2 of the 2 by 6 foot, and then the balance was that odd number that made up to 182 from 144. You'll also notice there are photos on the pilasters also. I'll cover that. So here's a little closer of that section between the 2 pilasters. You see the photos in the background. I think I must have gone past one. No, I guess we're good. And then these are the flats are not completely flats. There's a little, most of these have about a 1-inch dimension to them, just to give us something to break it up. I picked some photos from way far off. This is an old hosiery mill in North Alabama, Fort Payne, Alabama, close to where I grew up. So I thought, I really like this building. Main line of the Southern goes right through here. Well, now Norfolk Southern. But I like the building. I wanted to incorporate it in what we're doing here. There's part of that building put in there. Okay, the next thing we did is I built this building flat, and I wanted to put it an industry here, and I wanted to put it on around the pilaster. So what I did is the photo is this section, and on this side of the pilaster, it's one long photo, and then we creased it and glued it with paste. We used wallpaper paste and glued it on. But we had to crease it just right so it'd fit. You notice this building flat and this one, but I made them a different shade of red for the brick when I printed it to keep them separate. Okay, this is one of the full-size prints, 72 inches, but I needed smaller prints. This is the photo that goes around the pilaster we saw earlier, so it creases right through here, right through here. And then I also needed that odd piece of that 182 inches. So this is the left side of that 182 inch print. So I could combine these prints onto one, save paper and have to waste it. This is the next section over, backdrop buildings, foreground. And this is the full size buildings. On this side, this is just a shallow 1-inch building here. Okay, there's another section coming along. That was a building we saw on the right before. The buildings in the background, industry, some old trailers here. Okay, here we needed the vents for a roof. Even though this says it's copyright, I have permission from the copyright owner. And this is a stack out of a building. So you can see the top up here. We put them into this building. And this is on the photograph. This just shows, this was a close-up before. It shows it coming back. Here you can see, and I hate to point it out, but this is a scene where 2 photos came together. When you start getting in the sky, sometimes it gets a little touchy to get it all lined up, but the trees lined up good, the buildings lined up good. Here's another area. We were trying to position this building, this photo, to match up the scenery. So we put one up just to get an idea where this is a viaduct coming across in the passenger station for Everett for on a layout. And this is what it turned out to be. This is a viaduct coming across. There's this photo. And you see, because of the way the buildings are aligned, gives us a better depth perception in there. Another building, of course. But what we've done here is it's just a complete flat. And this is in the photo here to try to give that depth to the building in the scene. Another view of the same area. These are photos. This is a flat. Okay, this is for those that will recognize it. It's the Olympic Mountains. This is back in a corner, so we wanted to get as much depth perception as we could here, or perspective, I mean. So these are paper buildings that are between a Z scale and an N scale for size. This is that the town of Concrete. It's a cement plant. And this is that backdrop I showed at the beginning that is looking down into Wellington from Highway 2. Same part of that, the mountainside. This is the employees' housing for the cement plant. I felt sorry for this woman who's got her laundry out because all this dust from the cement plant's going to really mess up her laundry. So she has to catch it done late at night when they're not working. This photo was done in Snoqualmie Pass. There's a little creek working down. It fills down into the lake just east of Hyack. That's 3 photos stitched together. This is our coal mine operation. There is coal in the Cascades a little bit. Most of it was down in that Russ's area. We continue across. We let this picture on this side cover up the lake. It's in the back. We mentioned the photo I did earlier about the sky. If you notice, the sky here is where I messed up. The sky we've done before, more towards the top of the sky, is darker blue, and as you come down to the horizon, it gets a lot of haze. So all except 2 photos, this is one of them, has this haze into the photos as you get down more towards your horizon. I messed up when I put this sky in, and I put in a full blue sky, and we've had it glued to the wall and decided, hey, it's not that bad, we'll let it go. Each person who comes in and mentions that, we don't invite them back again. Yeah, I'm joking about that. This is working our way around. This is between the coal mine at Diablo and going to Winthrop. This is representing wheat fields up in the low areas of the mountain there. We're wheat fields at around Blue Head Pass. This is that red barn I talked about that we'll see a few times in here. It was interesting when I did this photo, I had gone through it several times, editing it, and I thought it was ready to print. I said, I'll check it one more time. I blow it up to 100%. I found in the middle of this field 2 Civil War cannons. Undoubtedly, the section we picked for this had some of the photo with it, so I immediately got rid of those cannons. It wouldn't be right to have them there in the field, I don't think. Just continue around. This shows where we blend the photo into this. This is a passenger shelter station in Diablo. Diablo is our wheat area, and got grain elevators here, and our reloads for the cattle pens. Here's another spot where the seam lined up good here, but as they came down, it shifted on us a little bit. There's the cattle pen that Burrie talked about earlier. The blend line is right through here. You see how this is sharp in the focus here, out of focus back here. Okay, now we're more in the area where to get up to the upper level, we go through a horseshoe curve and gain elevation. It's about a 3% grade. And we got waterfalls coming out of the mountains, feeding a lake. And this is all photos. This is water we put in. Some more of the scenery, just showing the blending. The big trees are in the background. These trees, and these are rock castings in the foreground. Working our way up grade to the top. When we first put this scene in, we put this in first instead of the photo. When we put the photo in, this was way off in color, so we had to redo the scenery. This is a building of the old brewery in Georgetown. Section of it is used in various spots in the photos. I got one part of here and another part I picked out of this. This is the one part. This is in that section, the 182-inch section between the two pilasters. Here's the other piece of it here. So we do use it in several spots if we can. Okay, shows a full-size print. This one's only 18 inches of the 24 inches. This is because on our lower level, we only had our height was the lower area is only 16 inches. So when we did our photos, we created them as 18 inches, but in order to print them, we have to put them onto a 24-inch canvas. So that's all this white across the top will be cut off, and we'll get you results like this. This is that same section we looked at earlier, and you get a little closer up showing the buildings that I'll take out and all the different layers.
Have you ever tried to paint on these backdrops to make the part lines blend a little bit better?
We haven't done it there, but we have sections where a highway didn't come out right, and we did a little painting on those. But that's a good idea. We need to look at that and see if it would help the part lines. We had a couple of spots where the clouds didn't come out right, and we're gonna airbrush in to get the clouds in the right spot.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. And you can see on this one where it's darker in the top of the sky and it gets lighter as you get more down towards the horizon.
Yeah.
This is just this placeholder till I can, so I know where the foreground building's going to go. The same here, the same here, and the same here. And then I'll go in on Photoshop and I'll cross these out, get rid of them so they don't show on the screen. Decide that that's my final print. Then I'll go in and flatten all of these. So now I'll have a flat print. Flattening gets rid of all the layers. And that takes it down from probably 10 or 12 megapixels down to about 5 megabytes.
Are you putting those flats on like a separate layer? Is that what you're doing? And then just taking off the layer?
Yes. Right. If you notice, they all look like there's the same building. It's just it's resized to different shapes. That's but nice. Yeah, they'll come off, and that's where the flats will go.
Did you do the Photoshop work yourself?
2 of us did. Well, okay. 3 actually. Bill Kajic did part of it. Warren Costalucio and myself. Mm-hmm. One person would do the basic Photoshop work. The other person would go check it. And then I would take it to Costco and have it printed.
Oh, okay, cool. You guys did some good Photoshop work there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There it is without the buildings in front, showing what the photo will look like. The next step, I just showed how I could eliminate those buildings, the part of the photo. And I'm going backwards on how we created this. Now, there's the clouds. There's without the clouds. Without the sky. And I showed this again just because of the layers and how we printed these out. Okay, that covered that part. This just shows how we did the automobiles, similar to that truck. One thing you can do is you can flip these in for in. So now this car moving to the right's moving to the left. And on these, we had to really watch how the shadows went in there. In some cases, I completely eliminated shadows. In some cases, we added shadows so they would follow the rest of the photo. Here's where I made a photo of a blacktop asphalt highway, so we can then take part of this and blend it into another photo. Okay, this is just some more of that long photo. I'm going to show you how we created it. We'll get to it. The background of this is actually Delta Yard. Okay, stitching the photos. We select the photos we want to combine. In this case, like the one at Stevens Pass, it was 5 photos combined, if I remember correctly. So we picked those 5 photos, put them into Photoshop to combine them. They're combined, but we must have an overlapping area. Generally, with these 5 photos, there should be about a 1/10 to a 1/3 that's overlapping. So you've got the same image in both photos, so that when Photoshop looks at that image and tries to stitch it, it'll pick the images that are the same and put them together. When you shoot these pictures, it's better if you can not stand in one place. Start at one area on this image you want to photograph, and then shoot the picture, walk 10 or 12 feet, do another one. The thing though, is you do this, you should set your camera on manual. If you use it on automatic, it may give you a different exposure. And then when you blend them, it'll be strips of the different exposure. So put it on manual. And also by doing that walking, it helps keep the image flat. You don't get parallax or distortion in the photo. Can't always do that. I needed the background for our Everett yard. This is Delta Yard in Everett. It's the old GN yard. And I shot several pictures. I'm on a bridge over the north end of the yard. I think I did 5 pictures here and combined them. So this is what just a general shot looked like. Second shot, second photo, third one, and there were some more, but I stitched them all together. If you'll see, there's more that wasn't in the first image is down here all the way to this end. But where they got stitched, we had common ground. But you see here, this area here, and across the top, it looks like checkerboard. And down the side, the computer didn't, or Photoshop didn't recognize that as a good piece of image, so it doesn't put anything there. But we need to put something in its place. So I did. I went in and cloned in these areas so they were filled. But I don't want the tracks in there. I don't want any part of the railroad, so I got to get rid of it. And I went in then and erased the area that was the track. I'll do some cropping. I don't want the power line coming across. I really just want this field. So I took this section of the photo and then cloned it or copied it into this section. So what I really want is this section will be the back of that long 182 inch photo that's between the 2 pilasters. But what I did is I flipped it in for in, so I now have 2 pieces. I have a right-hand side and a left-hand side, but they're just one flipped from the other. And here they are put together. You see the house that was here. I also had that same house over here. This is the same hillside, but I changed it some. I got rid of part of the house. I put some trees in front of it so you really can't see it. And that's how I split the photo. That would be the right side of the photo. And then this will be the left side of the photo. You see the sky, how it goes again, as I said earlier, across the top, dark. It gets further down, it gets light or hazy as it gets towards the horizon. Okay, now another photo we want to create. We'll go through the steps to complete it. This will be the 22 by, 24 by 72 inch photo. And these are the layers that are in it. So this is the completed photo. So let's just start with the photo. We're going to start on a blank screen. We're going to take the images and copy and move them into this one, and paste them into this image. We put the sky in first because we want it to be the background, the back layer of all the layers. And if you're not familiar with Photoshop, hadn't worked, you can capture this layer and move it someplace else so that you have the stack up of layers correct. Put in the left side of the photo, right side, but it's also some areas overlapping here. Added some buildings, more buildings. And I'll back up. That gives us a complete photo, but again, it's got all the layers in it. So after we decide what we don't want to put in this photo, like here, this part's X out because when Warren created the photo, he also created an extra layer. So you X this out or activate this layer, and you really don't see it because it's the same as all these layers put together. And whatever layer you've got clicked on is the layer you can do work on. So if I clicked on this layer here, Well, let's use the layer I got, which is this area. I then can go adjust this layer, but I can't adjust these other layers here. So in order to do my final editing on this, I will go in and flatten all these layers. I save it as a new image because I don't want to lose all this information I got here, because I may want to use some of this in another photo. So I flatten it, go through it again, make any final adjustments, like finding those cannons in the field that shouldn't be there, and then I'm ready to print. Okay, there's a screen print of one of the photos in work. This is the final one ready for print. This screen looks a little different because this is not in Photoshop Elements, but in Photoshop. Elements is will do 99% of the work we needed for creating these photos in Elements, and it's a much cheaper package of software. Photoshop, this is the expensive version, complete, do everything, but I brought it over here just to show a comparison of how you can use either one, but the Elements is to me a lot easier to work with. If you see in this photo right here, you see this little creek coming down. These I'll want to highlight that, so I'll use it in another photo I want to show you later, showing this how it's all blended. This photo's up on the wall and blended in. If you notice here, these are pickers' houses. These are houses that I photographed over in Wenatchee area, and these same picking houses have been put over here in this section. This is really 2 photos when it's all said and done. Okay, how do we install the photos? These are the tools we need. We need a cleaner. I'll tell you what for in a minute. Wallpaper paste, the brushes to put the paste on with, sponges, a single sponge, a big one will work, rollers, squeegees, newspaper. And I say 4 club members, but 2 can work if it's a small print, and some matte spray to finish things up with. So what are we going to do? With that cleaner, we're going to clean the backdrop that's already up there. In our case, it was the masonite or hardboard, to get any dirt off the wall, because you don't want anything being trapped behind the photograph. We use the wallpaper paste applied to the back of the photo. Before we picked wallpaper paste, we did test other glues and decided wallpaper paste is the best one to use. We use large brushes, 5 or 6 inch brush, to spread the paste on the back of the photo. And the newspapers are there to clean up and to make sure we don't get the paste on our work tables. When we spread the paste, we want to make sure it's spread out evenly so we won't get any lumps underneath. But this is how we set up to put the wallpaper paste on with. We've put the newspaper down. We got a tube of wallpaper paste here that we've purchased. It's not very expensive. I think we've probably gone through 3 of these containers doing 60 plus prints, and it's about $25, I think, a container off Amazon. I don't remember the brands, but if you want to know what it is, I'll look it up and I can give it, and we can get it put in the recording later. So we're getting ready to put the paste on the last one. The one we're getting ready to put the paste on is this photo here, and there's our seam goes right through here. So we've got the sponge, which we got a bucket of water. We use sponge, and we wring most of the water out. We got a squeegee brush and a roller. So as we put the piece up, any glue that eases out, you need to get rid of. So that's what the damp sponge for. And these photos will work with the damp sponge wiping them down. And then we use the squeegee and the roller to make sure this photo gets smoothed out and there's no air bubbles in it or no lumps of paste underneath. And you see, this is the yard. So one of our staging yards, Seattle. So we've covered up the yard area so no glue gets on the tracks. Okay, installation. I said we need 2 to 4 people to install. A short one, or 2 people if it's on the lower level and it's a short reach in, 2 people can do it. But if you got a long reach, you need 2 people really to bring the picture, the 6-foot section over and to the area, and then 2 people to get it installed. And then those two people who took it over are really sort of supervising and watching that we get everything lined up right, and we get the glue or the photo smoothed out so we don't have any lumps of glue underneath. If you're getting a section longer than 6 feet, it may take more people to put it up. Luckily, the only thing we've had to work with is a 6-foot section. It's a maximum. Make the first photo you put up, which is your baseline to start with, you want to make sure it's lined up and level. Some of the trouble we've had as we went through putting our next series of photos in, they started climbing on us. And about the 40th photo in, it's climbed 3 inches. Doesn't affect anything because we'll blend it in on the foreground with the scenery, but it does start to climb if you're not careful. We found out what we were doing wrong, so we prevented that in future ones. Want to make sure that having that photo nice and level and lined up, then was the next photo is going to line up and the details will match. And this is Warren putting up our last photo. This is the last piece I put in. It's a 11 inches wide, 16 inches high. This is this town of Fairhaven, which is located up next to Bellingham. And this is the Fairhaven Hotel that was, I think it was burnt down in the 1930s, but we wanted to put it on our layout anyway. It's a real nice location shot to show where you are and located. And Warren's, this is a tough one because we had to reach over the layout a good ways and get it all lined up, but it got in. Okay, we use the squeegee, like I say, to ensure that the photo's flat and all the air bubbles are out, the damp sponge to remove any paste on the surface photo, the rollers to make sure it rolls out flat. And I mentioned there, if the photo doesn't lay flat when you first put it up, you can, and the misalignment, you can gently pull it away before that glue starts to set up. But you only got a few minutes to work with it. Once it starts setting up after that, you don't want to pull it down or you rip the photo. After it's all done, we do spray the photo with the matte finish. We use a Krylon matte photo to protect the photo with. Usually takes 2 applications, sometimes 3, but you want to, the photos we had were in a sheen, sort of not a real glossy, but a lot more than matte. It just didn't look right with the lights reflecting off of it. So 2 good applications, sometimes a third if we had missed a spot. Really cuts down on the shine, but it's also a UV protection for any light coming in through windows. So there's just a few of the photos in the layout. Here's one of what we've tried to do in a couple of spots to give the depth, as I showed in the one building that was the tall building with multiple stories. This area here and along the front is the building. This is in the photo. It's just a photo of this building flipped around. So this is the backside here and the roof. What you see of the roof here is in the photo. And this is so we got depth in the photo. Same thing in this industry. This is the Bethlehem Forge and Foundry. The roof of the building is right here. All this is photo. So it gives us more depth. The tricky thing with doing these photos like this is that when you look at them, it's only a correct in one spot you're standing. If I move to the right or the left of that spot we picked as the main viewing spot, the proportions don't look right and the perspective isn't quite right. So you really got to decide where's my main looking point if I'm going to do the photos this way. It's very effective. It gives you a lot more depth. And here we're trying to give depth with these photographs to our backdrop because we're only dealing with shelves that are about 2 feet, at the most 2.5 feet deep. Another photograph. This is the last one, full size that we put up, and this is in that yard where we saw the pink bucket earlier. And this is the final photo that went up. This is our staging yard for Seattle. Shows how this is the main line coming through. This is foreground and pretty obvious the road. This is part of that asphalt paved road that I made photos of her earlier. So this is in the photo, all this back through here. But again, at the angle I'm standing, it doesn't look right. But the angle at which you're normally going to see it, it does show this depth going back. There's a tapering road. Again, these buildings in the front, this is just some containers and details on the photo. This is a asphalt with the water pooled up here and some reflections. And this area still needs to be scenic. This is a paper mill in Fairhaven, and the Fairhaven hotel I showed earlier is just off to behind this building here. When we do the scenery, we'll blend in. This is a road, and this is a paper mill, and this is where the trucks will come in to pick up the paper to go out. So this will blend in. Another scene shown a little wider of the log pond at the sawmill. The water coming down through the river. This where it's backed up and then drops down below, comes under the lake, under the covered bridge. Here's that barn I was talking about earlier, and we added some other detail to make it look different. Apple orchard. BEMRRC created the apple orchard. I'm not sure those apples are ready to pick, but a lot of them are falling to the ground, so maybe they are. This is the housing for the farming area where those the apple orchard. Here's part of the apple orchard. These are photos from Lake Chelan. And to help the blending process, the guys doing this scenery, this Bill Metzakar's area, Don Hubbard was working with him, and they put in this fence that goes all the way around through the band behind the houses to blend it in. And the road that showed the blending is this road coming out here. There's a bridge up to the side, and you see the railings that are in the photo coming down, and the road's coming, and then this is in the photo. This is on the scenery in the foreground, and the retaining walls foreground. This is scenery. This is the photo. Just showing the main yard, and this is where that long photo was. And this is that photo with the pilaster on the pilaster with the photo on it. Another section of the yard of the layout. This is that viaduct by the passenger station, and it just shows how the detail is underneath. This is a road here. This is the scenery or the photograph up here. And these are just the mainline tracks going through. There's that barn in another location. Now I mentioned that one photo where I mentioned the creek coming down in the photo, and now it comes photo. We've created the photo ends here, and this is created on the layout in the foreground. The waterfalls coming down, coming through under the mainline trackage. I'll let you read that one for yourself. I don't want to claim credit for that. I copied that out of a Boeing newspaper from 1980. Okay, questions, answers. I did say that we put all of ours on masonite, but there were two sections on the upper level around those pilasters that we had trouble with masonite, so we changed and smoothed those and put in 60,000 styrene sheet, and then glued to the sheet instead of to masonite for that two sections and there were about 3 feet long, I believe. But putting the paste on styrene worked really good anyway. It worked out fine.
Another way to do this would be to feather the blue on the backdrop and then cut at the horizon line and only glue on half of the backdrop. Did you try that?
We started to do that, Burr, but we found out we have so many tree lines in our photos that trying to cut around trees was going to be a problem. And that's after trying that, we decided it was better to put our own sky in and and that way we didn't have to blend it either. If you just want to cut it right across on a skyline without the tree showing, that would be easier. But if you're going to have little, trees in the photo that are going to show above the skyline, up into the skyline, you're going to have trouble cutting out individual trees like that. But yeah, we looked at it and decided this was an easier way for us.
A question: when you're taking pictures, particularly of buildings, what do you use for the setting on the camera from zoom to telephoto? 50 or 60? Any suggestions?
To do the photos of buildings, it's really important if you can get up so you're flat onto the building. Normally, if it's a multi-story building and you're on the ground, you're going to get some leaning or parallax into the photo. So you can fix those in Photoshop. There's a way to fix them if you're not familiar with Photoshop. As far as the image, I tried to use it more towards the wide angle than the telephoto.
Okay.
Something, I was using mostly in the 24 to 35 millimeter range. You start doing telephoto, it makes that leaning of the building a little worse, at least what I found out.
Yeah, I agree with Byron on that. And I would say too, yeah, if you can get a wide angle lens, and also if you're using the DSLR that you use in that regard will make a difference as well. A lot of the less expensive ones tend to use what they call a crop sensor. And that means that when you're even at your widest angle on your lens, you're still zooming in more than you would be on a full size sensor. On the Canons, they're 6D or 5D, those are full sensor cameras, but they're T series cameras are crop sensors.
Yeah, it's a 1.6 ratio.
Yeah.
So if it's
exactly.
a 50 millimeter, you're going to get it, 1.6 times that is actually the focal length of your lens. And I use both cameras. I have a 40D that has the 1.6 because it's a smaller sensor. And then I have a 5D Mark II, which is a full sensor. And it just depends on what camera I've got with me when I find something I want to shoot. I prefer the bigger one, but either one will work. Just realize that you're going to see a little bit different perspective from the focal length of the lens. I think Nikons are like a 1.5, but I'm not sure. I don't use Nikon. So Bobby, have you used Photoshop before?
I have not.
Okay. There's a couple of tools in there that will let you straighten them up. And there's another way you can grab an index line and bring it over that's perfectly parallel and perpendicular, two different lines. So then you can then line your building up, edge of your buildings up against that line. So there's some aids that'll help you align the building.
The best angle for viewing, do you figure it down close to trackside? How do you figure where to angle the backdrop vertically?
Part of it is where, in our case, it's a 2-level layout. So the perspective for the upper level is different than the lower level. The lower level, we're trying to do it, at least my perspective is we're looking flat onto the image. We're not trying to look up into a mountain. Upper level, we're trying to look up into a mountain area because all of us are lower than that mountain in our height. So then we want that perspective of the mountain scene to go away from us and decrease in size. Sort of like a forced perspective of using in-scale buildings on an HO layout so you can get depth to it.
Right.
So we cause the photos to do that. I don't remember the height of our layout, 42, 45 inches on the lower level. The upper level is 18 inches higher than that.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Byron.